All right, here we go with lesson 100. Sorry. All right, so this lesson is on advanced ratio problems. And so with these problems, we have to be really good about organizing our information to make sure that we write the right ratios to get the right answers, okay? And what this usually means is that we're dealing with some other kind of information. They're trying to kind of throw us a fastball or a curveball or something, right? So trying to mess us up just a little bit. So I'm going to read you the first example and then we're going to talk through it, okay? So example 100.1 says the ratio of nuts to bolts was 11 to 2. If there were 260 nuts and bolts in the pile, how many of them were bolts? Okay, so let's start organizing our information. I already kind of wrote out my chart here. I have nuts, bolts, total. I have the ratios that they give us and then the actual numbers that they give us. So looking back at the problem, we can see the ratio of nuts to bolts. So remember, that's the order that they're going to be listed in, is 11 to 2. So nuts comes first, so that's 11, and bolts comes next, that's 2. Do we know the total number of the ratio or the total number of units that this is being broken down into? They don't tell us that, but because we know there's 11 units of nuts and 2 units of bolts, we can confidently say that there are 13 total units that they're breaking things into, okay? Because 11 plus 2 is, that's right, Smarties, 13. All right, so then they tell us the total number of actual pieces that there are. It says if there were 260 nuts and bolts in the pile, okay? So we're gonna actually put that right here. Do we know the actual number of nuts? We don't. So we're going to put an N there. We don't know the actual number of bolts, so we're going to put a B there. But then they ask us how many were bolts, okay? So they want to know how many were bolts. So all we have to do is say, okay, I know that we have 2 over 3 is our ratio, right? 2 units out of the 13 total units that the nuts and bolts pile are broken down into are bolts, right? So that's going to be our fraction, 2 over 13. Now remember, when we're working with ratios, we set it equal to another fraction, okay? Do we know the actual number of bolts? No. So we're going to use that as a B. And then we're going to say B over 260. Now remember, I told you guys that whatever's on one side has to reflect the same thing on the other side. So the number of bolts and bolts have to be at the top, and then the total number of units and then the total actual number have to be on the bottom, because those are our totals. Those are related, and then the 2 and the B are related because they both signify bolts, okay? So now we have the ratio of 2 over 13 set equal to B over 260. Anytime we have a ratio, all we have to do is cross multiply, okay? So we get 13B is equal to 2 times 260 is, let's see, 2, 4, 520. And when we divide each side by 13, those cancel out, B equals, and 520 divided by 13 is 40. Now, would that be a good enough answer? No, because you have to have a unit of measurement. Is it 40 jelly beans, 40 bunny rabbits, 40 TikTok videos? Just kidding. 40 bolts. So remember, you have to have a word in the answer to your word problem, okay? So let's do one more example. I'll just point out one more thing. Remember, I told you guys sometimes when you do these charts, when you organize the information, it helps you very easily to make fractions out of things, okay? So try taking notes, try making little charts and stuff as you read these word problems to help set yourself up for success. So the second example says, Farmer Danowski wanted to plant his farm with wheat and corn in the ratio of 7 acres to 9 acres. If he had 640 acres total, how many should be planted in wheat? Okay, so again, we're going to do our ratio, we're going to do our actual, and we're going to list the information that they give us. So we have wheat, corn, and total. And then we have ratio numbers that they give us, and actual. Okay, the ratio that he wants to do is 7 to 9. So 7 wheat, 9 corn, and he has 640 acres. Okay, so do we know how many actual acres he's going to do of wheat? No, so we're going to use W. Corn? No, so C. Do we know the total number of units that the total acreage is going to be broken into? Well, we know that there's going to be 7 wheats and 9 corn, so 7 plus 9 is 16. All right, so the question then asks, how many should he plant in wheat? So the numerator for our fraction is going to be 7, and the denominator is going to be 16, okay? So we're going to have 7 of the total 16 should be wheat. Do we know how many actual wheat? No. So that's going to be across from the 7, and we know the total acreage is 640. Now we're going to cross multiply because we're working with fractions that are set as a proportion. So 16 times W gives us 16W is equal to, let's see if they tell me. No, let me get my calculator. $640 times 7 equals 4,480. We're going to divide each side by 16. We're left on one side with W and 280 acres. 280 acres, okay? So remember, take notes, okay? Fill in your total for the number of units that it's being broken into, and then set up your proportion based on what they're asking for. If they would have asked us for corn, our formula would have been 9 over 16 is equal to C over 640, right? And then we would have used the same method of cross multiplication, isolating the variable using inverse operations, and then getting our answer. Remember, word problems need words and the answers. That was lesson 100. Hope you had fun.